For 13 years, Justine Musk kept quiet about the man behind the rockets and electric cars. While the world celebrated her ex-husband as a genius who would save humanity, she knew a different truth. A darker truth about financial crimes, stolen ideas, and destroyed lives. She watched from the shadows as Elon became more powerful, more famous, more untouchable. She saw him hurt employees, manipulate investors, and abandon his own children when they didn't fit his perfect vision. The threats from his lawyers kept her silent. The fear of his billions kept her quiet. But when she realized her silence was helping him hurt more innocent people, everything changed. In a phone call that would shake the world, Justine finally decided to speak. What she revealed wasn't just about a failed marriage. It was about fraud that saved Tesla from bankruptcy. About taking credit for other people's work. About a criminal conspiracy to silence anyone who threatened his carefully built image. Her words would destroy the myth of Elon Musk. They would send him to prison, and they would change how the world thinks about power, truth, and courage forever. This is the story of how one woman's decision to break her silence brought down one of the most powerful men on earth. Sarah Chen was having a normal Tuesday morning at her desk in San Francisco. She was drinking her second cup of coffee and reading emails when her phone rang. The number was not one she knew. "Hello, this is Sarah," she said. "Sarah? It's Justine. Justine Musk." Sarah almost dropped her coffee cup. She had not heard from Justine in over 10 years. They went college together at Queen's University in Canada. Back then, they both wanted to be writers. They would stay up late talking about books and dreams. "Justine? Wow. Hi. How are you?" Sarah asked. But Justine's voice sounded different. It was shaky and scared. "Sarah, I need help. I need to tell my story. The real story about Elon and me. Before it's too late." Sarah sat up straight in her chair. She worked as a tech reporter now. She wrote stories about companies like Apple and Google. Everyone knew Elon Musk. He was famous for Tesla cars and SpaceX rockets. But Justine was his first wife. She never talked to reporters. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked softly. "People think they know Elon. They see him on TV talking about going to Mars. They read his tweets. They think he's this amazing genius who will save the world." Justine stopped talking for a moment. Sarah could hear her breathing hard. "But they don't know what he was really like. What he did to me. What he did to our kids. What he's still doing to other people." Sarah's heart started beating faster. This could be a huge story. But she was also worried about her old friend. "Justine, are you okay? You sound upset."
"I'm scared, Sarah. Really scared."
"Elon has so much power now. He has billions of dollars. He has lawyers. He has millions of people who think he's perfect. Then why call me? Why now?" Justine was quiet for a long time. Sarah thought maybe the call had ended. Then Justine spoke again. "Because I can't stay quiet anymore. I've been watching him get more and more famous. I see young women dating him. I see employees working for him. And I know what's really happening behind all the success." "What's really happening?" "I can't tell you on the phone. It's too dangerous. But Sarah, what I know could change everything. It could change how people see him. It could change his whole empire." Sarah grabbed a pen and started writing notes. Her reporter instincts were taking over. "Where are you now?" Sarah asked. "I'm in Los Angeles." "Can you come here?" "I know it's a lot to ask. We haven't talked in so long. But you're the only reporter I trust." Sarah looked at her calendar. She had meetings all week. But this felt important. More than important. It felt historic. "When do you want to meet?" "As soon as you can get here. Tomorrow, if possible." "But Sarah," Justine's voice got very quiet. "Once I tell you what I know, there's no going back. For either of us." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Elon will try to stop this story. He'll use his money and power to silence me. He's done it before, to other people who tried to speak out." Sarah felt a chill run down her back. She had heard rumors about Elon being mean to employees, but she thought those were just normal work complaints. "Justine, if this is so dangerous, maybe you should talk to the police instead of a reporter. The police can't help with what he did. It wasn't illegal, but it was wrong. Very wrong. and people need to know the truth. Sarah made her decision. Okay, I'll catch the first flight to LA tomorrow. Where should we meet? There's a small coffee shop in Manhattan Beach. It's called The Daily Grind. Do you know it? I'll find it. What time? 2 o'clock? And Sarah, thank you. I know this is crazy. Calling you after all these years with this huge request. We were friends once. Good friends. I want to help. Just promise me one thing. If you decide not to write this story, you have to promise to never tell anyone what I tell you. Some secrets are too dangerous. I promise. After they hung up, Sarah sat staring at her phone. Outside her office window, San Francisco looked normal. People walked by on the sidewalk. Cars drove down the street. But everything felt different now. She opened her computer and searched for flights to Los Angeles. Her hands were shaking a little as she typed. What could Justine possibly know that was so terrible? What had Elon Musk done? Sarah had always thought Elon was odd, but brilliant. He said strange things on Twitter sometimes. But he was also building electric cars to help save the planet. He was trying to get humans to Mars. Weren't those good things? As she booked her flight, Sarah wondered if she was making a mistake. Maybe Justine was just an angry ex-wife who wanted revenge. Maybe this was all a waste of time. But something in Justine's voice told her this was real. This was big. This was the kind of story that could change everything. Sarah looked at her calendar and started canceling meetings. Tomorrow, she would find out what Justine Musk had been hiding for all these years. Tomorrow, she would learn the truth about one of the most famous men in the world. She just hoped she was ready for whatever that truth might be. Sarah's plane landed in Los Angeles at noon. She took a taxi to Manhattan Beach and found the Daily Grind coffee shop. It was small and quiet, with only a few customers. Perfect for a secret meeting. She got there early and ordered a coffee. Her hands were still shaking a little. She kept looking at the door, waiting for Justine to arrive. At exactly 2 o'clock, a woman walked in. Sarah almost didn't recognize her. Justine looked older, of course. But there was something else different about her. She looked tired. Really tired. Like she hadn't slept well in years. But her eyes were different too. They looked stronger somehow. Like she had made up her mind about something important. Sarah? Justine said softly. Hi, Justine. Sarah stood up and gave her old friend a hug. You look like you've been through a lot. They sat down at a corner table, far from the other customers. Justine kept looking around the room. She seemed nervous. I'm scared, Sarah, Justine said. I've been scared for a long time. But I'm more scared of staying quiet than I am of speaking up. Why? What are you so afraid of? Elon has so much power now. He has billions of dollars. He has millions of followers on social media who believe everything he says. If he decides I'm his enemy, he can make my life very hard. Sarah pulled out her notebook and pen. But Justine put her hand over the notebook. Not yet. First, I need to know you'll really listen. And I need to know you'll believe me. I'll listen. But Justine, I'm a reporter. I have to check facts. I can't just believe stories without proof. I have proof. But before I show you, I need to tell you how we met. How this all started. Because people need to understand that I'm not just some angry ex-wife trying to get revenge. Sarah put her pen down and leaned back in her chair. Okay, tell me. Justine took a deep breath. I met Elon at Queen's University in 1992. We were both young. I was studying English literature. I wanted to be a novelist. Elon was studying business and physics. What was he like back then? He was intense, really intense. He would go days without showering because he was so focused on his computer projects. Other students thought he was weird, but I thought he was brilliant. Justine smiled a little, remembering. He had these huge dreams. He talked about going to space, about building cars that didn't need gas, about changing the world. It was exciting to be around someone who thought so big. That sounds nice. It was nice. At first, he was sweet to me. He would write me long letters about our future together. He said we would colonize Mars together, that we would have many children and raise them to be super smart. Sarah was taking mental notes, even without writing. It sounded so romantic when I was 20 years old. Who doesn't want to be part of changing the world? So what happened? Justine's face got serious again. We started dating, and slowly things changed. Elon didn't like my friends. He said they were not smart enough for us. He wanted me to spend all my time with him. That doesn't sound too bad. It got worse. He didn't like it when I spent time writing. He said I was being selfish, that I should be helping him with his projects instead of wasting time on stories that might never get published. Sarah frowned. That did sound controlling. I thought it meant he really loved me, that he just wanted us to be together all the time. I was young and stupid. You weren't stupid, Justine. You were in love. I gave up my writing dreams to support his dreams. I thought that's what girlfriends were supposed to do. Support their boyfriend's career. Justine paused and looked around the coffee shop again. A new customer had come in. She watched him until he sat down far away from them. We dated for years. All through college, and after. Elon started his first company, Zip2. I helped him with writing and marketing. But I was never officially an employee. Never got paid. That must have been frustrating. I told myself it was temporary. That once he was successful, we would get married, and I could go back to writing. But success just made him more demanding. Sarah was starting to see the pattern. He sold Zip2 for millions of dollars in 1999. Suddenly we had more money than I had ever imagined. I thought our problems were over. But they weren't. They got worse. Elon started his next company, X.com, which later became PayPal. Now he had money and big dreams. He became obsessed with work. He would disappear for days at a time. Justine's voice got quieter. When he came home, he was different. Cold. Mean sometimes. He would criticize everything I did. The food I cooked. The clothes I wore. The books I read. Did you try to talk to him about it? I tried, but he said I didn't understand business. That I was too emotional to think clearly about important things. He made me feel stupid for caring about things like spending time together or talking about feelings. Sarah was getting angry just listening to this story. We got married in 2000. I thought maybe marriage would make things better, but it made them worse. How? Justine looked directly at Sarah for the first time since she started talking. Because now I was trapped. I had given up my career. I had no money of my own. All our friends were his friends. My whole life was built around supporting Elon. What about your family, your old friends? He had convinced me to move away from everyone I knew. He said successful people needed to focus on the future, not waste time with people from the past. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. This sounded like classic emotional abuse. Sarah, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to tell you next, it's never been made public. Ever. If this story comes out, it could destroy Elon's reputation forever. Sarah picked up her pen again. What is it? It's about what happened to our first baby. And how Elon's reaction to that tragedy showed me who he really was underneath all the success and fame. Justine's eyes filled with tears. After you hear this, you'll understand why I stayed quiet for so long. And why I can't stay quiet anymore. Justine wiped her eyes and took a sip of her coffee. Sarah waited patiently. She could see this was hard for her old friend. Our wedding was in January 2000. Justine began. It was beautiful. Elon had just sold Zip2 for over $300 million. We had more money than I ever dreamed of. That sounds amazing. I thought our life would be perfect now. We had love, money, and big dreams about the future. What could go wrong? Justine laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Everything changed after we got married. It was like Elon felt he owned me now. He started X.com right away. That company later became PayPal. How did that affect your marriage? He became obsessed with work. Completely obsessed. He would leave the house at 6 in the morning and not come home until midnight. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at all. Sarah was taking notes now. Justine seemed ready to talk. When he did come home, he was like a different person. Cold and angry. He would complain about everything. The house was too messy. Dinner was too late. I talked too much about boring things. What kind of boring things? Things like wanting to spend time together. Or asking about his day. Or talking about books I was reading. He said successful people didn't waste time on small talk. Justine stared out the coffee shop window. I started walking on eggshells around him. I tried to keep the house perfect. I tried to have dinner ready exactly when he wanted it. I tried to only talk about things he found interesting. That sounds exhausting. It was. But I thought it was temporary. I thought once his company was more stable, things would get better. Did they? No. They got worse. Elon sold PayPal to eBay in 2002 for $1.5 billion. Suddenly he was really rich and really famous. Justine's voice got softer. That same year, we had our first baby, a little boy named Nevada Alexander. Sarah could see tears forming in Justine's eyes again. He was perfect, Sarah. Just perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, the sweetest little face. I was so happy. I thought having a baby would bring Elon and me closer together. Did it? For about 2 weeks. Elon was excited at first. He talked about how Nevada would be super smart like him, how he would help us colonize Mars someday. Justine had to stop talking for a moment. She was crying now. But then something terrible happened. Nevada was only 10 weeks old. He was taking a nap in his crib. When I went to check on him, he wasn't breathing. Sarah felt her heart sink. She knew what was coming. We rushed him to the hospital. The doctors tried everything. But it was too late. Nevada died of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Oh, Justine, I'm so sorry. It was the worst day of my life. I felt like my world had ended. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even think clearly. Justine wiped her eyes with a napkin. I needed Elon to hold me, to cry with me, to help me understand how we could survive losing our baby. What did he do? He said crying wouldn't bring Nevada back. He said we needed to be strong and move on. He said we should have more children right away to replace the one we lost. Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. Replace him? That's exactly what he said. Like Nevada was a broken computer that needed to be replaced with a new model. How did that make you feel? Completely alone. I was drowning in grief, and my husband was telling me to just get over it and try again. Justine took another sip of coffee. Her hands were shaking. Elon went back to work the next day. He said staying busy was the best way to deal with sadness. He started SpaceX just a few months later. What about you? I was destroyed. I spent months barely getting out of bed. I would sit in Nevada's empty room and cry for hours. Did Elon try to help you? He got frustrated with me. He said I was being dramatic, that I was choosing to be sad instead of choosing to be strong. Sarah was getting angry again. This was emotional abuse during the worst possible time. He would come home from work excited about rockets and space travel. When I didn't share his excitement, he said I was bringing negative energy into the house. That's horrible. I started to feel like Nevada's death was somehow my fault. Like if I had been a better mother, he would still be alive. Elon never said that directly, but he never said it wasn't true either. Justine looked directly at Sarah. Losing Nevada changed Elon in a way that affected every relationship he had after that. He decided that caring too much about people was a weakness. What do you mean? He became even more focused on work and success. He said emotions were inefficient, that successful people couldn't afford to waste time on feelings. But feelings are part of being human. Exactly. But Elon started to see being human as a bug that needed to be fixed. He wanted to be like a computer. All logic, no emotions. Justine paused and looked around the coffee shop again. Sarah, what I'm about to tell you next explains everything that came after. Why his other marriages failed. Why his employees are afraid of him. Why his own children don't trust him. What is it? It's about how he decided our family should work after Nevada died, and how that decision affected everything in his life from that point forward. Justine looked around the coffee shop one more time. Then she leaned closer to Sarah. After Nevada died, Elon made a decision. He said our family would work like a business. No wasted emotions, no time for sadness, everything focused on success in the future. What did that mean exactly? It meant we would have more children right away. But this time we would do it the smart way, using science instead of leaving things to chance. Sarah raised her eyebrows. Science? IVF. In vitro fertilization. Elon said this was better because we could control more variables. We could make sure the babies were healthy before they were born. How did you feel about that? I was still grieving Nevada. I wasn't ready to try again so soon. But Elon said waiting was inefficient. He had spreadsheets showing the best timeline for having children. Justine shook her head. He treated having babies like a business project. He wanted 5 sons to carry on his legacy. He said daughters were fine too, but sons were better for building companies. That's a horrible way to think about children. I know that now. But back then I was so broken from losing Nevada. I thought maybe Elon was right. Maybe focusing on the future was better than being sad about the past. Justine continued her story. In 2004 we had twins, Griffin and Xavier, 2 beautiful boys. I was so happy to be a mother again. Were you able to enjoy them? For a little while. But Elon had also started getting involved with Tesla Motors that year. Another new company to obsess over. How did that affect your family? He was never home. Tesla was having problems with their first car. Elon would work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was basically a single mother with 2 babies. Justine's voice got frustrated. When he did come home, he was either exhausted or angry about work problems. He had no energy left for me or the boys. Did you try to talk to him about it? I tried. But he said I didn't understand how important his work was. He was trying to save the planet by making electric cars. He said my job was to take care of the children so he could focus on saving the world. Sarah was writing quickly now. In 2006, we had triplets. 3 more boys. Kai, Saxon, and Damien. So now I had 5 children under the age of 2. That must have been overwhelming. It was chaos. 5 babies crying, needing diapers, needing food, and Elon was traveling constantly for Tesla and SpaceX business. What was a typical day like for you? I would wake up at 5 in the morning when the first baby started crying. I would spend the whole day feeding them, changing them, trying to get them to nap. By the time Elon came home at night, I was exhausted. Justine took a long sip of her coffee. But instead of helping, he would immediately check his phone. Even during dinner with the kids, he was reading emails about batteries and rocket engines. That sounds lonely. I felt like I was married to a ghost. He was physically there sometimes, but his mind was always somewhere else. Did the success of Tesla help things? It made things worse. The Tesla Roadster launched in 2008, and suddenly Elon was famous. Everyone wanted to interview the brilliant CEO who was changing the car industry. Justine's voice got bitter. But at home, he became even more controlling. He picked the boys' schools. He chose their activities. He even picked their friends. He controlled their friendships. He said most children weren't smart enough to be good influences on his sons. He wanted them to only spend time with other gifted kids. How did you feel about that? I disagreed, but my opinion didn't matter. Elon said I didn't understand child development or education. He had read books about raising genius children. Sarah could see the pattern getting worse. He treated our boys like an experiment, like he was trying to create the perfect children who would grow up to help him colonize Mars. What about your own needs? I was disappearing, Sarah. I used to be a writer with my own dreams. Now I was just Elon Musk's wife to everyone. No one cared that I had written a book or had my own thoughts about things. Did you try to go back to writing? I tried. But every time I worked on a story, Elon would interrupt me. He needed me to handle something with the children, or plan a dinner party for important business people, or organize our travel schedule. Justine looked sad. I felt guilty for wanting time to write. Elon said I was being selfish, that I should be grateful to be married to someone who was changing the world. That doesn't sound fair. Nothing felt fair anymore. I was working 24 hours a day, taking care of 5 children and managing our household. But Elon got all the credit for being successful. When did things get really bad? 2008 was the worst year. Tesla was running out of money and almost went bankrupt. Elon was stressed and angry all the time. He would come home and yell about work problems. Justine paused and looked directly at Sarah. But 2008 was also when I discovered something that changed everything. Something that made me realize my marriage wasn't just unhappy. It was built on lies. What did you discover? I found out that while I was home taking care of his 5 children, exhausted and isolated, Elon was living a completely different life when he traveled. Justine's eyes filled with tears again. Sarah, what I'm about to tell you next is the reason I stayed quiet for so long. It's also the reason I can't stay quiet anymore. Justine took a deep breath. Sarah could see her hands shaking as she reached for her coffee cup. In late 2008, Tesla was in big trouble. The company was almost out of money. Elon was traveling all the time trying to find investors to save the business. That must have been stressful for your family. It was terrible. Elon would be gone for weeks at a time. I was home alone with 5 young boys. Griffin and Xavier were 4 years old. The triplets were only 2. Justine paused and looked around the coffee shop again. One night in November, I was trying to pay our household bills. My laptop was broken, so I used Elon's computer. That's when I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. What was it? His email was still open. There were messages from someone named Tallulah Riley. I had never heard that name before. Sarah felt her stomach drop. She had a feeling she knew where this was going. At first, I thought maybe she was a business contact. But then I started reading the messages. Justine's voice got very quiet. They weren't business emails, Sarah. They were love letters. Oh no. Elon had been having an affair with this woman for months. She was an actress from England. They had met at some party in London. How long had it been going on? Based on the emails, at least 6 months. Maybe longer. While I was home changing diapers and making dinner, he was flying to different cities to meet her. Justine wiped her eyes with a napkin. The worst part wasn't that he was cheating. The worst part was reading how different he was with her. What do you mean? In those emails, he was romantic and sweet. He wrote her poems. He told her she was beautiful and smart. He planned special surprises for her. That must have been so painful. He was everything with her that he used to be with me. Everything he had stopped being years ago. Justine's voice got angry. I realized that Elon wasn't broken or too busy for romance. He just didn't want to be romantic with me anymore. What did you do? I printed out some of the emails. Then I sat in our kitchen all night, reading them over and over. I couldn't believe it was real. Did you confront him? When he came home the next day, I showed him the emails. I thought maybe he would be sorry. Maybe he would end the affair and try to fix our marriage. Sarah waited for Justine to continue, but he didn't deny it. He didn't even seem upset that I found out. What did he say? He said our marriage had been over for years. That I had stopped trying to be interesting or attractive. That I was too focused on the children and not focused enough on being the kind of wife a successful man needed. He blamed you? Completely. He said successful men like him needed partners who could keep up with their lifestyle, who could be exciting and glamorous at business events. Justine laughed bitterly. I reminded him that I had 5 children under the age of 4. That I was exhausted because I was doing all the childcare while he traveled. That's why I wasn't glamorous anymore. What was his response? He said other wives of successful men managed to stay attractive and interesting while raising children. That I was making excuses. Sarah felt sick listening to this. Then he told me he wanted a divorce. Not in 6 months or a year. Right away. He said he was in love with Tallulah and wanted to marry her. Just like that? Just like that. 13 years together. 5 children. And he was ready to throw it all away for someone he had known for 6 months. How did you react? I was in shock. I had known our marriage had problems, but I thought we would work through them. I never imagined he would just replace me. Justine stared out the window. He said he would make sure I was taken care of financially, but that I needed to be quiet about the reasons for our divorce. He wanted you to lie? He said his reputation was important for Tesla and SpaceX. That negative stories about his personal life could hurt the companies and the employees who worked there. What kind of negative stories? Stories about him cheating on his wife while she was home raising his 5 children. Stories about him being cruel and controlling. Stories that would make people question if he was really the genius hero they thought he was. Sarah was writing frantically now. So you agreed to stay quiet? I felt like I had no choice. I had given up my career to support his dreams. I had no money of my own. All our friends were really his friends from work. That sounds terrifying. It was. But I also felt guilty. What if telling the truth really did hurt Tesla? What if good people lost their jobs because of our personal problems? Justine looked directly at Sarah. So I signed papers promising to keep quiet about our marriage and divorce. I thought I was protecting our children and Elon's employees. But now you regret that decision? Now I understand that staying quiet didn't protect anyone. It just gave Elon permission to keep treating people badly. What do you mean? Sarah, what I learned about Elon during our divorce. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about a pattern of behavior that has hurt many people over the years. Justine leaned forward. And I have proof of things that could change how the world sees him forever. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. What kind of proof? Justine looked nervous again. She checked her watch and glanced around the coffee shop. I can't tell you everything here, it's too risky. But Sarah, during our divorce in 2009 and 2010, I learned things about Elon's business practices that would shock people. Business practices. Things he did to save Tesla when it was almost bankrupt. Things that weren't exactly legal. Sarah's heart started beating faster. This was bigger than just a marriage story. But first, let me tell you about the divorce itself. Because that's where I really saw who Elon had become. Justine took a sip of her coffee. His lawyers were brutal. They painted me as a greedy ex-wife who was trying to steal money from a genius inventor. What was their strategy? They said I hadn't contributed anything to Elon's success, that I was just a housewife who got lucky by marrying a brilliant man. But you supported his career for years. That didn't matter to them. They said supporting your husband wasn't the same as building companies, that I hadn't earned any of his wealth because I didn't write computer code or design rockets. Sarah was getting angry again. What about raising 5 children? What about giving up your own writing career? The lawyers said that was my choice. That plenty of women managed to have careers and families, that I was making excuses. Justine shook her head. It was like being married to Elon all over again. Everyone telling me that my contributions didn't matter. How long did the divorce take? Almost 2 years. 2 years of fighting over money, custody, and who would get what property. What was the hardest part? The pressure to stay quiet. Every week, someone would remind me that Elon was becoming more famous, that Tesla stock was going up, that SpaceX was getting contracts with NASA. Justine's voice got frustrated. They said if I told negative stories about Elon, it would hurt these important companies, that thousands of employees might lose their jobs because of our personal problems. That seems like manipulation. It was manipulation, but it worked. I felt guilty for even wanting to tell the truth about what our marriage was really like. Who was pressuring you? Everyone. Family members who had invested money in Tesla, friends who worked at SpaceX. Even my own lawyer kept saying I should just take whatever settlement Elon offered and disappear quietly. Sarah was taking detailed notes. During this time, something else was happening with our children that made everything worse. What was that? One of our sons, Xavier, was starting to show signs of being different from his brothers. Different how? Xavier was more sensitive, more artistic. He liked different clothes and different activities than the other boys. Justine paused. I started to wonder if Xavier might be questioning his gender identity. I wanted to talk about it openly and get professional help if needed. What did Elon think? He refused to even discuss it. He said all his children would be strong, successful boys who would help him build his companies someday. He wouldn't consider that Xavier might be transgender. He said that was impossible. That he had chosen to have sons, and that's what Xavier would be. No discussion. Sarah felt sad for the child caught in the middle of this. Even with our children, Elon had to control everything. If something didn't fit his vision of the perfect family, he pretended it didn't exist. How did that affect Xavier? Xavier started having problems at school. He was sad and angry a lot. But Elon said that was normal for gifted children. Did you get help for Xavier? I tried. But Elon controlled the family finances. He wouldn't pay for therapy unless the therapist agreed that Xavier just needed to be tougher. Justine looked out the window. I realized that Elon saw our children the same way he saw his employees. They were supposed to follow his vision without question. What happened with the divorce settlement? In the end, I signed an agreement that I regret to this day. What kind of agreement? I got some money and shared custody of the children. But I also signed papers promising never to speak negatively about Elon in public. A non-disclosure agreement? Exactly. I couldn't write a book about our marriage. I couldn't give interviews about what he was really like. I couldn't even post about it on social media. Why did you agree to that? Because I was exhausted and scared. I had been fighting for 2 years. I just wanted it to be over. Justine's voice got quiet. But also because I still believed that protecting Elon's reputation was protecting our children's future. Do you still believe that? No. Now I see that protecting his reputation just gave him permission to keep hurting people. Sarah looked up from her notes. You mentioned proof about his business practices. What did you learn during the divorce? When you divorce someone as rich as Elon, lawyers have to look at all the financial records, bank accounts, investments, company documents, everything. And I saw things that didn't make sense. Money moving between accounts in strange ways. Financial reports that didn't match what I knew about Tesla's real situation. Justine leaned closer to Sarah. I kept copies of some documents because I thought I might need them later. I never imagined I would actually use them. What do the documents show? They show that in 2008, when Tesla was almost bankrupt, Elon did something to save the company that could have sent him to prison. Sarah's pen stopped moving. Sarah, what I'm about to tell you could destroy everything Elon has built. Are you sure you're ready to hear this? Sarah nodded slowly. I'm ready. Tell me what you found. But Justine shook her head. Not here. Not yet. First, I need to tell you what happened after the divorce, because that's when I really understood the pattern. What pattern? How Elon treats everyone in his life. Wives, employees, even his own children. The same way he treated me. Justine finished her coffee and pushed the cup away. After our divorce was final in 2010, I tried to rebuild my life. I moved to a smaller house with the boys. I tried to start writing again. How was that? Hard. Really hard. I had been out of the writing world for so long. I felt like I had forgotten how to tell stories. What about the children? That was the hardest part. Elon would change our custody schedule at the last minute because of work emergencies. Work emergencies? Tesla meetings, SpaceX launches, important business dinners. His work always came first, even when it meant disappointing the kids. Sarah could see the pain in Justine's eyes. The boys loved their father, but they started to see how he put business before family, just like I had learned during our marriage. How did they handle that? Griffin and Xavier, the older twins, began asking questions. Why didn't Dad come to their school plays? Why did he miss their birthday parties? Why was he always on his phone during visits? What did you tell them? I tried to protect Elon's relationship with him. I made excuses for him. I said he was working hard to make the world better. Justine sighed. But kids are smart. They could see that other dads made time for their children, even when they had important jobs. What about Elon's new relationship? He married Tallulah Riley in 2010. I watched from a distance, wondering if he would be different with her. Was he? At first, it seemed like maybe he had learned something from our divorce. He posted romantic pictures on social media. He talked about how happy he was. But I could see the same pattern starting. Tallulah would travel with him to business events. She looked beautiful and smiled for cameras. But she always seemed nervous. Justin paused. I felt sorry for her. She seemed like a sweet, smart woman. But I knew what it was like to be married to someone who saw you as an accessory to their success. Did you ever try to warn her? How could I? I had signed papers saying I couldn't talk negatively about Elon, and who would believe me anyway? Everyone thought he was this amazing genius who just hadn't found the right woman yet. Sarah was taking notes again. What happened to their marriage? They divorced in 2012. Then got married again in 2013. Then divorced again in Twice? I think Tallulah kept hoping he would change. That maybe if she tried harder she could make him happy. That sounds familiar. Exactly. I had done the same thing for years, thinking that if I was just better somehow our marriage would work. Justine looked sad. During this time I was struggling with my own problems. Depression and anxiety. I felt like I had lost myself completely. Did you get help? I started seeing a therapist in 2012. That's when I began to understand what had really happened in my marriage. What did you learn? That what I had experienced had a name. Emotional abuse. Elon never hit me, but he had destroyed my confidence and made me feel worthless. How did that feel to learn? Scary at first, because it meant admitting that I had been a victim, that I had let someone treat me badly for years. But also helpful? Yes, because I realized it wasn't my fault, that I wasn't crazy or weak or stupid. I was just someone who had been manipulated by a very controlling person. Sarah nodded encouragingly. The therapy helped me see how Elon used his intelligence and success to make me doubt myself. Every time I disagreed with him, he made me feel like I was the problem. What about your writing? I slowly started working on stories again. But it was hard to trust my own voice after years of being told my thoughts didn't matter. Did you publish anything? A few short stories in small magazines. It wasn't much, but it felt like coming back to life. Justine looked around the coffee shop again. Meanwhile, Elon was becoming more and more famous. Tesla stock kept rising. SpaceX was doing amazing things. Everyone saw him as this visionary leader. But you knew better? I knew the real cost of his success. The employees who worked impossible hours. The family relationships he had destroyed. The women he had used and discarded. When did you decide you had to speak out? It wasn't one moment. It was a series of things that made me realize staying silent was actually helping him hurt more people. Sarah leaned forward. What things? What happened with Xavier? What I learned about his treatment of employees, and what he did during the Thai cave rescue in 2018. The cave rescue? When he called that British rescue worker a pedo guy on Twitter just because the man criticized his submarine idea. How did that affect you? I saw how Elon's need to always be right led him to attack innocent people. How he used his millions of followers as weapons against anyone who disagreed with him. Justine's voice got stronger. That's when I realized that my silence wasn't protecting anyone. It was giving him permission to keep being cruel. So you decided to call me? Not yet. First, I had to gather my courage and my evidence. Sarah waited patiently as Justine gathered her thoughts. The first thing that really opened my eyes happened in 2016. It was about Xavier, your son who was questioning his gender. Yes, by then Xavier was 12 years old. She had been struggling for years with feeling different from her brothers. Xavier came out to me as transgender. She wanted to be called Vivian and use female pronouns. Justine's eyes filled with tears. I was proud of her for being brave enough to tell me the truth. I wanted to support her however I could. How did Elon react? He was horrible. Sarah. Absolutely horrible. What did he do? He said it was impossible, that he had specifically chosen to have sons through IVF, that Vivian was just confused or going through a phase. Sarah felt her heart break for the child. When I tried to explain that gender identity isn't something you choose, he got angry. He said I was filling Vivian's head with crazy ideas. That must have been so hard for Vivian. It was devastating. She needed her father's love and support. Instead, he made her feel like something was wrong with her. Justine wiped her eyes. He refused to use her new name or the right pronouns. He kept calling her Xavier and treating her like she was just being rebellious. Did he ever come around? No. If anything, he got worse. He started making cruel comments about transgender people in general, as if Vivian being trans was somehow an attack on him personally. How did that affect your relationship with Vivian? She started to see the difference between how I supported her and how her father rejected her. It broke my heart. Sarah was writing quickly. Around the same time, I started hearing stories about how Elon treated his employees at Tesla and SpaceX. What kind of stories? Workers who were fired for small mistakes. Engineers who had to work 100-hour weeks without breaks. People who were yelled at in front of their coworkers. Did these stories surprise you? Not really. I recognized the patterns from our marriage. The impossible standards, the blame when things went wrong, the need to control everything. What was different about hearing it from employees? I realized that what I thought was just personal problems between Elon and me was actually how he treated everyone. Justine took a deep breath. The final straw came in 2018 during the Thai cave rescue, when the boys' soccer team was trapped in the cave. Yes, everyone was trying to help save those children. It was a beautiful example of people working together. But Elon got involved? He showed up with this submarine idea that the rescue experts said wouldn't work. When a British cave rescuer named Vernon Unsworth criticized the plan, Elon lost his mind. What did he do? He called the man a pedo guy on Twitter, in front of millions of followers, just because the expert disagreed with him. Sarah remembered that incident making news. This was a hero who was risking his life to save children. And Elon attacked him with a horrible accusation just because his ego was hurt. How did that affect you? I saw how Elon's need to always be right led him to destroy innocent people. How he used his fame and followers as weapons against anyone who disagreed with him. Justine's voice got stronger. I realized that my silence wasn't protecting our children or Tesla employees. It was protecting Elon's ability to keep hurting people. Is that when you decided to speak out? I started thinking about it seriously. But I was still scared. What were you scared of? Everything. Legal action. Public attacks. Having my past dragged through the media. What changed your mind? In 2019, Elon started dating a musician named Grimes. They seemed happy at first, but I could see the same patterns starting. The same patterns from your marriage, and from his marriage to Tallulah. The love bombing at the beginning. Then the slow process of making her change to fit his vision of the perfect girlfriend. Did you try to warn Grimes? How could I? She probably thought she was special. That their relationship would be different. Justine looked sad. I had thought the same thing when I was young. Every woman who gets involved with Elon thinks she'll be the one who can change him. What happened with Grimes? They had a baby together in 2020. A son they gave a very strange name that got a lot of attention. Did having a child help their relationship? For a while, maybe. But I could see Elon treating Grimes the same way he had treated me when our children were young. How? She was expected to handle all the childcare while he traveled and worked. When she wanted to focus on her music career, he made her feel guilty. How could you tell? From interviews and social media posts. The same tired look I used to have. The way she always seemed to be defending their relationship. When did they break up? They separated in 2021, but it was complicated. They kept getting back together and breaking up. Like his pattern with Tallulah? Exactly. Elon doesn't know how to have healthy relationships. He just repeats the same toxic patterns with every woman. Sarah looked up from her notes. So that's when you decided to gather evidence? I started reaching out to other people who had been hurt by Elon. Former employees who were afraid to speak publicly. Other women who had dated him. What did you find? That I wasn't alone. That Elon had a long history of treating people badly. But everyone was too scared to speak up because of his power and money. What kind of evidence did you gather? Stories from employees about workplace abuse. Financial documents from our divorce that showed questionable business practices. Emails and text messages that revealed his true character. Justine leaned forward. Sarah, I have enough evidence to show that Elon Musk's public image is completely fake. That he's not the genius hero people think he is. What's he really like? He's a narcissist who built his success on the backs of other people, who takes credit for their work and destroys them when they're no longer useful. And you're ready to prove that? I'm ready to tell the truth. Even if it destroys my life. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. What's the most damaging thing you can prove? Justin looked around the coffee shop one more time. Then she met Sarah's eyes. That in 2008, Elon committed financial fraud to save Tesla. And I have the documents to prove it. Sarah's pen stopped moving. Financial fraud? That's a serious accusation, Justine. I know how it sounds. But I'm not making this up. I have bank records, emails, and financial statements from. Tell me what you found. Justine looked around the coffee shop nervously. Not here. There are too many people. Can we go somewhere more private? Sarah nodded. They paid for their coffee and walked to Sarah's rental car. They drove to a quiet park near the beach and sat on a bench overlooking the ocean. Okay, Sarah said. Now tell me about the fraud. In 2008, Tesla was dying. The company was almost out of money. Elon was desperate to find investors to keep it alive. That's public knowledge. Tesla almost went bankrupt. What's not public is how Elon made the company look healthier than it really was. Justine pulled out a folder from her purse. During our divorce, I had to review all our financial records. That's when I saw these strange money movements. What kind of movements? Elon was moving his personal money into Tesla's accounts right before quarterly reports. Just long enough for the audits. Then he would move it back to his personal accounts. Sarah felt her stomach drop. That would make Tesla's cash position look better than it was. Exactly. Investors thought Tesla had more money than it really did. They invested millions based on fake financial reports. Are you sure about this? I have copies of the bank transfers. The dates match perfectly with Tesla's quarterly filings. Justine opened the folder and showed Sarah some papers. Look at this. On March 15, 2008, Elon moved $50 million from his personal account to Tesla. On March 18, Tesla filed their quarterly report showing strong cash reserves. On March 25, the money was moved back to Elon's account. Sarah studied the documents. They looked real. This happened multiple times? At least 6 times between 2008 and 2009. Always the same pattern. Money in before reports, money out after reports. Why didn't auditors catch this? Because technically, the money was in Tesla's accounts when they checked. Elon was very careful about timing. Sarah's mind was racing. This could be securities fraud. It could destroy Tesla and send Elon to prison. Why didn't you report this during the divorce? I was scared. My lawyer said it would be hard to prove intent to defraud, and Elon's lawyers threatened to make my life hell if I caused problems. What changed your mind? I started talking to other people who had been hurt by Elon. I realized keeping this secret was helping him hurt more people. Sarah put the documents back in the folder. Who else have you talked to? Former Tesla employees who were afraid to speak publicly. Other women who dated Elon after me. What did they tell you? The employees described a workplace culture of fear. People working impossible hours because they were scared of being fired. Can you give me specific examples? One engineer told me Elon made him work for 3 days straight without sleep. When the man made a small mistake because he was exhausted, Elon fired him in front of the whole team. That's terrible management. Another worker said Elon would randomly fire people just to scare the others. He called it keeping everyone sharp. Sarah was taking notes again. What about the women you talked to? They all described the same pattern. Love bombing at first, then slow control and manipulation. Love bombing? Overwhelming someone with attention and gifts to make them fall in love quickly. Then using that love to control them. Can you give me an example? One woman Elon dated in 2015 said he flew her to different countries every weekend for a month. Made her feel like a princess. Then he started criticizing her friends, her job, her clothes. How did it end? When she pushed back against his control, he dumped her immediately, told her she wasn't ambitious enough for someone like him. Sarah shook her head. The pattern was clear. Justine, these are serious allegations. Have you thought about what could happen when this story comes out? Every day. Elon has billions of dollars and an army of lawyers. He could make my life very difficult. Then why are you doing this? Because staying quiet makes me part of the problem. Every woman who gets involved with him, every person who works for him, deserves to know what they're getting into. Sarah looked out at the ocean. What about your children? How will this affect them? That's the hardest part. They love their father, even though he's hurt them. But they also deserve to know the truth about him. How do you think they'll react? Griffin and the triplets might be angry with me at first. But Vivian already sees how cruel her father can be. Because of how he treated her transition? Yes. She understands that his public image doesn't match who he really is in private. Have you talked to her about this? Not directly. But she's old enough to see the news and understand what's happening. Sarah closed her notebook. Justine, what you're asking me to do could change everything. Not just for Elon, but for Tesla, SpaceX, all the people who work there. I know. But hiding the truth hasn't protected those people. It's just given Elon more power to hurt them. What if you're wrong about the financial documents? What if there's an innocent explanation? Then let the experts examine them. Let the SEC investigate. If I'm wrong, Elon can prove it. And if you're right, then people deserve to know that one of the most famous men in the world built his empire on lies. Sarah felt the weight of the decision in front of her. What do you need from me? Write the story. Use your platform to make sure people hear the truth. I'll need to verify everything. Talk to other sources. Make sure the documents are real. I understand I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. This could take weeks or months to investigate properly. I've waited over 10 years to tell this story. I can wait a little longer to make sure it's done right. Sarah stood up from the bench. Okay, I'll investigate your claims. But Justine, once this story is published, there's no taking it back. I know, but I can't live with this secret anymore. They walked back to the car in silence. Sarah's mind was spinning with questions and possibilities. As they drove back toward town, Justine spoke quietly. Sarah, there's one more thing I need to tell you. Something that could be even more damaging than the financial fraud. What is it? It's about how Elon has silenced other people over the years. The threats, the legal intimidation, the non-disclosure agreements. What about them? I have evidence that he's used illegal tactics to keep people quiet. Things that go way beyond normal business practices. Sarah pulled over to the side of the road. Justine, how much evidence do you actually have? Enough to prove that Elon Musk's entire public persona is a carefully constructed lie, and enough to show how he's destroyed people who tried to expose the truth. Sarah stared at Justine. What do you mean he destroyed people who tried to expose the truth? I mean, he used his money and power to silence anyone who threatened his image. Justine opened another folder she had brought, former employees who tried to report safety problems, journalists who investigated his business practices, even some of his own business partners. What happened to them? Lawsuits, threats, having their careers destroyed. Some of them lost everything. Sarah felt a chill. That's serious stuff. Justine, I know, but there's something even bigger that people need to understand about Elon's success. What's that? The truth about how he really built Tesla and SpaceX. Everyone thinks he's this self-made genius who created everything from scratch. Isn't he? Justine shook her head. That's the biggest lie of all. She pulled out more documents. During our marriage, I saw how Elon really operated. He didn't invent most of the technology that made him famous. What do you mean? He hired brilliant engineers and scientists. Then he took credit for their ideas and innovations. Sarah was writing frantically. At Tesla, he pushed out the real founders and rewrote history to make himself look like the creator. The real founders? Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning started Tesla in 2003. Elon invested money in 2004, then slowly took over and erased their contributions. How did he do that? Legal battles, financial pressure. Eventually, he forced them out and convinced the world that Tesla was his idea from the beginning. That's horrible. At SpaceX, he did the same thing. He hired the best rocket engineers in the world, then claimed their innovations as his own genius. Justine showed Sarah some papers. Look at these internal emails from 2006. Elon is asking his engineers to solve technical problems. A week later, he's giving interviews taking credit for the solutions. Sarah studied the documents. They seemed to show exactly what Justine was describing. He's brilliant at marketing himself and raising money. But his real talent is making other people's work look like his own achievement. Why didn't these engineers speak out? Some tried, but Elon made them sign non-disclosure agreements, and he threatened to destroy their careers if they talked. What about his famous work ethic? The stories about sleeping on the factory floor? Justine laughed bitterly. Performance art. What do you mean? He would make sure cameras were there when he slept at the office. But he wasn't actually working the whole time. What was he doing? Playing games on his phone, tweeting, texting girlfriends, reading news articles about himself. How do you know this? Because I was married to him. I saw how he actually spent his time. Sarah was shocked. So the image of the hard-working genius CEO is fake? Mostly fake. Don't get me wrong, Elon is smart and he works hard sometimes. But he's not the superhuman workaholic people think he is. What about his vision for the future? Mars colonization, sustainable energy, those are real goals, and they're important. But Elon didn't come up with most of those ideas either. Where did they come from? Scientists and researchers who had been working on these problems for decades. Elon just packaged their ideas in a way that got media attention. Justine paused and looked out at the ocean. The saddest part is that the real innovators, the people doing the actual work, get no credit. Meanwhile, Elon gets all the fame and money. Why are you telling me all this? Because people invest their money in Tesla stock, thinking they're supporting a genius inventor. Employees work for him thinking they're helping a visionary leader. But they're not. They're supporting a narcissist who takes credit for other people's work and treats them badly. Sarah closed her notebook for a moment. Justine, these are incredibly serious accusations. Fraud, taking credit for others' work, silencing critics. Do you understand what you're asking me to publish? I understand completely, and I have evidence for all of it. What kind of evidence? Financial records showing the fraud. Emails showing him taking credit for others' ideas. Legal documents showing how he silenced people who tried to speak out. Where did you get all this? Some from our divorce proceedings. Some from former employees who trusted me with their stories. Some from other women he dated who kept records. Why did you keep all this evidence? At first, I kept it to protect myself in case Elon tried to hurt me or take my children away. But over the years, I realized it was bigger than just our personal problems. How much bigger? Big enough to show that one of the most famous and powerful men in the world is not who people think he is. Sarah felt overwhelmed. This could bring down Tesla and SpaceX. Thousands of people could lose their jobs. Or it could free those companies from Elon's toxic leadership. Maybe they would be more successful without him. You really believe that? I know those companies have amazing, talented people working for them. People who could do incredible things if they weren't constantly afraid of their CEO's mood swings. What about the good things Elon has accomplished? Electric cars, space exploration. Those things are important and they'll continue. But they don't excuse fraud and abuse. Justine gathered her papers. Sarah, I'm not trying to destroy the future of sustainable transportation or space travel. I'm trying to save them from being controlled by someone who cares more about his own ego than actually solving problems. How do you know this story won't just hurt the causes you care about? Because the truth always comes out eventually. Better to control how it comes out than to let Elon's lies keep growing until they collapse on their own. Sarah started the car. I need time to verify all of this. To check your documents with experts. To interview other sources. I understand. How long do you think it will take? Weeks. Maybe months. This is complicated stuff. I've waited 13 years. I can wait a little longer. As they drove back toward town, Sarah's mind was racing. The evidence seemed solid, but the implications were staggering. Justine, there's one more thing I need to ask. What? After everything you've told me, what do you think Elon's real legacy will be? Justine was quiet for a long moment. I think history will remember him as someone who could have been great, but chose to be cruel instead. Someone who had every advantage but used his power to hurt people, rather than help them. That's sad. It is sad. Because with all his intelligence and resources, he could have actually been the hero people think he is. Instead, he chose to be something much darker. Sarah pulled up to Justine's hotel. Are you ready for what comes next? Once I start investigating this story, there's no going back. I'm ready. For the first time in 13 years, I'm ready to tell the truth. 3 weeks later, Sarah sat in her San Francisco office staring at her computer screen. She had spent every day since meeting Justine checking facts, calling sources, and verifying documents. Everything checked out. The financial records were real. The emails were authentic. The timeline matched perfectly with Tesla's public filings from Sarah picked up her phone and called Justine. It's Sarah. Can you meet me again? I need to hear the complete story about the financial fraud. All the details. Are you going to publish it? If what you told me is true, yes. But I need to understand exactly what happened. They agreed to meet at the same coffee shop in Manhattan Beach the next day. When Sarah arrived, Justine was already there, looking nervous but determined. Did you verify the documents? Justine asked. I had 3 different financial experts look at them. They all said the same thing. The money movements you showed me would constitute securities fraud. Justine took a deep breath. Then I'll tell you everything. Start from the beginning. In early 2008, Tesla was in terrible trouble. The company was burning through money faster than they could raise it. How bad was it? By March, they had less than 2 weeks of cash left. Elon was desperate. What did he do? He tried everything legal first. He called every investor he knew. He begged banks for loans. Nothing worked. Sarah was taking careful notes. That's when he came up with the plan to move his personal money into Tesla's accounts. How much money? The first time it was $50 million. He moved it from his personal bank account to Tesla's main operating account on March 15th. Why that date? Because Tesla's quarterly audit was scheduled for March 18th. The auditors would see $50 million in cash and think the company was healthier than it really was. What happened after the audit? On March 25th, exactly 1 week later, Elon moved the money back to his personal account. Did anyone at Tesla know about this? Just Elon and maybe one person in accounting, who processed the transfers. Everyone else thought the money was real Tesla cash. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. This wasn't just one time? No. He did it 6 times between March and December 2008. Always the same pattern. Move money in, file reports, move money out? Exactly, and each time Tesla's stock price went up because investors thought the company had more cash than it really did. How do you know all these details? Because I helped manage our family finances back then. I saw every bank statement, every transfer, every movement of money. Sarah paused her note-taking. Justine, do you understand what you're telling me? This isn't just bad business practices. This is criminal fraud that could have sent Elon to prison. I know. And it gets worse. Worse, how? Because the fake financial health convinced new investors to put money into Tesla. Investors who thought they were buying into a stable company. How much money did they invest based on the false reports? Over $200 million in 2000. Sarah's head was spinning. So Elon's personal money movements helped him raise hundreds of millions from people who didn't know they were being lied to? Yes. And those investments are what saved Tesla and made it the company it is today. So Tesla's entire success is built on fraud? The foundation of it? Yes. Without those fraudulent financial reports, Tesla would have gone bankrupt. Sarah put down her pen. Why didn't you report this during your divorce? I was terrified. My lawyer said proving intent to defraud would be almost impossible, and Elon's team threatened to destroy me if I tried. What kind of threats? They said they would claim I was lying to get more money in the divorce. That they would make me look like a greedy ex-wife who was making up stories for revenge. Would people have believed that? Probably. Elon was already becoming famous as this brilliant entrepreneur. Who would believe his ex-wife over him? What about the SEC, the government agency that watches for financial crimes? His lawyers said that even if I reported it, the SEC might not investigate. And if they did, it would take years and might not lead to charges. So you stayed quiet? I stayed quiet and hated myself for it every day since. Justine's eyes filled with tears. I kept telling myself I was protecting our children's future. That if Elon went to prison, it would hurt them. Do you still believe that? No. I think staying quiet hurt them more. It taught them that powerful people can get away with anything. Sarah looked through her notes. Justine, this story will destroy Elon's reputation completely. It could bring down Tesla and SpaceX. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Sarah, for 13 years I've watched Elon become more and more powerful. I've watched him hurt employees, abuse his position, and attack anyone who disagrees with him. And I've realized that my silence has been helping him. Every day I don't speak up is another day he gets to keep lying to the world. What about the good things Tesla and SpaceX have accomplished? Those companies have amazing people working for them. They'll survive without Elon. They might even be better without his toxic leadership. Sarah closed her notebook. I need to ask you one more time. Do you have any doubts about what you saw? Any possibility you misunderstood the financial records? None. I've looked at those documents 1,000 times over the years. I know exactly what they show. And you're willing to testify about this publicly? Yes. I'm willing to tell the truth, no matter what it costs me. Sarah felt the weight of the decision in front of her. Okay, I'm gonna write this story. But Justine, once it's published, everything changes. For you, for Elon, for everyone. I understand, but I can't carry this secret anymore. It's time for the world to know who Elon Musk really is. What do you think will happen to him? I think the truth will finally catch up with him. And maybe that's what needs to happen for real progress to be made. As they parted ways, Sarah knew she was about to publish the biggest story of her career. A story that would change how the world saw one of its most famous men. The truth was finally going to come out. Sarah spent the next 2 weeks writing the most important article of her life. She checked every fact 3 times. She called legal experts to make sure her language was accurate. She even hired a private investigator to verify some of Justine's claims. Everything held up under scrutiny. On a Tuesday morning in April, Sarah published her story on the news website where she worked. The headline read, "The Elon Musk Files: How Tesla's Success Was Built on Financial Fraud." Within an hour, the article had 10,000 views. Within 3 hours, it was the most read story on the entire website. Sarah's phone started ringing immediately. "Sarah, this is incredible," said her editor. "Every major news outlet is calling us. They want to interview you about the story." "What about legal? Are we going to get sued?" "Our lawyers reviewed everything. They say we're protected because you documented all your sources and evidence." But Sarah was worried about something else. "What about Justine? Is she safe?" As if summoned by her words, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Justine. "Elon's lawyers called me an hour ago. They're threatening to sue me for lying. But I'm not backing down." Sarah immediately called her. "Justine, are you okay?" "I'm scared, but I'm okay. The phone has been ringing all morning. Reporters want to interview me. What did you tell them? That I stand by everything I told you. That I have documents to prove every claim. What about Elon? Has he responded publicly? Oh yes. He's been tweeting for hours. Sarah quickly checked Twitter. Elon had posted a series of angry messages calling the story fake news, and Justine a bitter ex-wife making up lies for attention. But something was different about his tweets. They seemed desperate and scattered. Not like his usual confident posts. The stock market is reacting, Justine said. Sarah checked her computer. Tesla's stock price had dropped by 30% in just 4 hours. SpaceX was private, but industry experts were questioning whether the company could survive if the fraud allegations were proven true. Justine, this is really happening. Are you prepared for what comes next? I've been preparing for 13 years. Over the next few days, the story exploded across all media. Every television news show covered it. Newspapers around the world picked it up. Social media was filled with debates about whether the allegations were true. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced they were opening an investigation into Tesla's 2008 financial reports. The FBI said they were reviewing the fraud allegations, but something unexpected started happening. Other people began coming forward with their own stories about Elon. Former Tesla employees posted on social media about workplace abuse. They described being yelled at, fired without cause, forced to work impossible hours. Women who had dated Elon shared stories that sounded exactly like Justine's experience. Love bombing followed by control and emotional abuse. Even some of Elon's business partners from years past started talking about questionable practices they had witnessed. Sarah found herself at the center of a media storm. Every day brought new interview requests and new revelations. This is bigger than I expected, she told Justine during one of their daily phone calls. I think people were waiting for someone to speak first. Now that the door is open, everyone wants to tell their truth. How are you holding up? It's hard. Elon supporters are attacking me online. They're calling me terrible names and making threats. Are you safe? I hired a security company. And I'm staying with friends instead of at my house. What about your children? That's the hardest part. Griffin and the triplets are confused and upset. They don't understand why their mother is attacking their father. Have you talked to them about it? I tried to explain that telling the truth isn't the same as attacking someone. But they're young and they love their dad. What about Vivian? She understands better. She's seen how her father treats people who don't fit his vision of perfection. The investigation moved quickly. Financial experts confirmed that the money movements Justine had documented would constitute securities fraud. Legal experts said Elon could face serious criminal charges if prosecutors decided to pursue the case. Tesla's board of directors held an emergency meeting. Rumors started spreading that they might ask Elon to step down as CEO. SpaceX faced questions about whether they could continue their government contracts if their founder was charged with fraud. But Elon wasn't going down without a fight. He hired the most expensive lawyers in the country. He went on television to deny all the allegations. He claimed Justine was lying because she was angry about their divorce. She's trying to destroy me because I moved on and found happiness with other people, he said in one interview. But his denials started to fall apart when other evidence emerged. A former Tesla accountant came forward with more financial documents that supported Justine's claims. An SEC investigation found irregularities in Tesla's 2008 reports that matched exactly what Justine had described. Most damaging of all, investigators found emails from 2008 where Elon discussed the money movements with his accountant. The email showed he knew exactly what he was doing and why it was risky. 3 months after Sarah's story was published, the SEC filed formal charges against Elon for securities fraud. The FBI added charges for wire fraud and conspiracy. Tesla's stock price crashed to its lowest level in 5 years. The company's board voted to remove Elon as CEO, though he remained as a regular board member. SpaceX suspended Elon from day-to-day operations while the criminal charges were pending. How do you feel about all this? Sarah asked Justine during one of their conversations. Sad. Mostly. I never wanted to destroy Elon, I just wanted him to be held accountable for his actions. Do you regret speaking out? No. For the first time in 13 years, I feel like I can breathe freely. The truth is finally out there. What's next for you? I'm writing a book about my experiences. Not just about Elon, but about emotional abuse and how powerful people use their status to hurt others. That sounds important. I want other women to recognize the signs earlier than I did. And I want them to know they're not alone. As Sarah finished writing her follow-up articles about the case, she reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. The man the world had seen as a visionary genius was now facing prison time. The companies he had built were struggling to survive without him. But perhaps most importantly, a conversation had started about power, abuse, and accountability that went far beyond just one person's story. The truth had finally come out, and it was changing everything. 6 months after Sarah's story was published, the world looked very different. Elon's criminal trial was set to begin in 3 months. His lawyers had tried everything to get the charges dropped, but the evidence was too strong. Tesla had a new CEO, a woman named Maria Santos, who had previously run a major car company. Under her leadership, the company was actually doing better than before. It's amazing what happens when employees aren't afraid of their boss, Maria said in her first interview. Our productivity has gone up 30% since Elon left. Tesla workers were speaking openly about how different the workplace felt now. People actually smile at work, said one engineer. We can disagree with ideas without being afraid of getting fired. SpaceX had also found new leadership. The rocket company continued its missions, but with a focus on teamwork instead of one person's ego. But the biggest change was in how people talked about powerful leaders. Justine's story had started a movement. The hashtag #MuskTruth was trending on social media every week. People shared stories about other powerful men who had abused their positions. It's not just about Elon, Justine told Sarah during one of their regular phone calls. It's about a whole system that lets rich, powerful men get away with hurting people. How do you feel about becoming the face of this movement? It's scary sometimes, but also hopeful. I get messages every day from women who say my story helped them recognize abuse in their own lives. What kind of messages? Women who left controlling relationships. Employees who reported workplace abuse. People who are finally speaking up instead of staying quiet. Justine had written her book titled Breaking the Silence: My Life with Elon Musk. It became a bestseller immediately. But she wasn't keeping all the money for herself. I'm using most of it to start a foundation, she told Sarah. We'll help women who are trapped in abusive relationships with powerful men. What will the foundation do? Provide legal help, financial support, and counseling. Many women stay in bad situations because they can't afford to leave. Like you felt trapped? Exactly. I had given up my career and had no money of my own. Many women are in the same situation. The foundation, called Truth and Healing, opened offices in 5 cities. Within the first month, they had helped over 100 women escape abusive relationships. Meanwhile, more details about Elon's business practices kept coming out. Former employees revealed that he had taken credit for innovations created by his engineering teams. Documents showed he had fired people who tried to get recognition for their own work. The myth of the lone genius was always false, said Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a business professor who studied Elon's companies. Great innovations come from teams, not individuals. The Tesla and SpaceX engineering teams were finally getting credit for their real contributions. Many of them received promotions and recognition they had been denied for years. But the story wasn't over yet. During preparation for his criminal trial, investigators found even more evidence of Elon's misconduct. They discovered he had used private investigators to spy on former employees who might speak out against him. He had tried to hack into Justine's email accounts during their divorce. He built an entire system to protect himself and silence his critics, said FBI agent Robert Chen, who led the investigation. The additional charges meant Elon could face up to 20 years in prison if convicted. His supporters still defended him online, but their numbers were shrinking. Too much evidence had come out for people to deny the truth. Grimes, his most recent ex-girlfriend, finally spoke publicly about their relationship. I should have listened to the warning signs, she said in an interview. Justin was brave to speak out. I wish I had been that brave sooner. She described the same patterns Justine had experienced. Love bombing followed by control and emotional manipulation. He made me feel like I was lucky to be with such an important man. But really, I was just another person for him to control. Even some of Elon's children were speaking out. Vivian, now 18 and legally an adult, gave her first interview about growing up with Elon as a father. He never accepted me for who I am, she said. Everything had to fit his vision of perfection. When I came out as transgender, he treated me like I was broken. How did that affect you? It made me stronger, actually. I learned that being authentic is more important than making other people comfortable. Vivian had changed her last name and cut contact with her father completely. I love the person he could have been, she said. But I can't have a relationship with the person he chose to be. The other children were younger and still processing everything. Justine was getting them counseling to help them understand what had happened. They're confused and hurt, Justine told Sarah. But they're also learning that telling the truth is always better than protecting lies. As Elon's trial date approached, public opinion had shifted completely. The man who had once been seen as a visionary genius was now viewed as a cautionary tale about unchecked power and ego. Business schools started teaching case studies about how his toxic leadership had actually hurt innovation at his companies. When employees are afraid to disagree with the boss, you get worse products and worse decisions, explained Professor Walsh. Fear kills creativity. Tesla and SpaceX were thriving under new leadership that encouraged collaboration and honest feedback. We're doing things now that we never could have done before, said one SpaceX engineer. When people feel safe to share ideas, amazing things happen. Sarah had won several journalism awards for her reporting on the story. But she was most proud of the conversations it had started. This isn't just about one man's downfall, she wrote in her final article about the case. It's about creating a world where power comes with accountability. The trial was about to begin, and the whole world was watching. But regardless of what happened in court, Justine had already achieved her goal. The truth was out, and it was changing how society thought about power abuse and the courage required to speak up. I spent 13 years being afraid, Justine said in her final interview before the trial. But I learned that staying silent about injustice makes you part of the problem. What do you want people to remember about your story? That ordinary people have the power to hold extraordinary people accountable. But only if we're brave enough to tell the truth. 1 year after Justine's story was published, Sarah stood in a courtroom in San Francisco watching history being made. The jury had just found Elon Musk guilty on all charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. He would spend the next 15 years in federal prison. As the judge read the verdict, Elon showed no emotion. But Sarah could see Justine in the gallery, tears streaming down her face. After the trial, Sarah met Justine outside the courthouse. "How do you feel?" Sarah asked. "Relief. Finally. After all these years, there's justice. Any regrets about speaking out?" "None. This was bigger than just our personal story. It was about stopping a pattern of abuse that could have continued for decades." The trial had revealed even more shocking details about Elon's behavior. Prosecutors showed evidence that he had threatened and intimidated dozens of people over the years. Former employees testified about being followed by private investigators. Business partners described being blackmailed into silence. Even some investors said they had been threatened when they asked difficult questions. He built a criminal organization designed to protect his reputation, said prosecutor Angela Rodriguez. This wasn't just fraud. It was a systematic effort to silence anyone who might expose the truth. The judge agreed. Mr. Musk used his wealth and power to hurt innocent people for his own gain. This sentence reflects the seriousness of those crimes. But the real legacy of Justine's courage wasn't the prison sentence. It was how the world had changed. Tesla had become the most successful car company in the world, under new leadership. Without Elon's chaotic management style, the engineers were free to innovate like never before. "We're launching 3 new models this year," said CEO Maria Santos. "Our team is doing amazing work now that they feel safe to take creative risks." SpaceX had just completed its first successful mission to Mars. The engineering team that Elon had claimed credit for was finally getting recognition for their brilliance. "These accomplishments belong to the thousands of people who actually did the work," said SpaceX's new CEO, Dr. Jennifer Park. "Great achievements come from great teams, not great egos." But the most important changes were happening in boardrooms and offices around the world. Companies started creating better systems to protect employees from abusive leaders. Business schools began teaching courses about ethical leadership and the dangers of unchecked power. "The Musk case changed how we think about corporate responsibility," said Harvard business professor Michael Chen. "CEOs can't just focus on profits anymore. They have to consider how they treat people." Justine's foundation, truth and healing, had helped over 5,000 women escape abusive relationships. They had offices in 20 cities and a staff of hundreds. Every week, we get calls from women who say Justine's story gave them courage to leave, said Foundation Director Lisa Williams. Her bravery created a ripple effect that's still growing. The foundation also worked with companies to identify and stop workplace abuse before it caused serious harm. We teach people to recognize the warning signs, Lisa explained. Controlling behavior, taking credit for others' work, punishing people who disagree. These patterns usually start small but get worse over time. Many of the Tesla and SpaceX employees who had been fired or mistreated by Elon went on to start their own successful companies. We learned what not to do, said former Tesla engineer David Kim, who now ran his own electric vehicle startup. We're building companies based on respect and collaboration, not fear and ego. These new companies were creating innovations that helped solve climate change and advance space exploration. The work was continuing, but with healthier leadership. Justine had remarried to a kind man named Robert who supported her activism work. She was happier than she had been in decades. I feel like I'm finally living my own life, she told Sarah during one of their regular coffee meetings. For so many years, my whole identity was built around someone else's success. What's different now? Everything. I make my own decisions. I choose how to spend my time. I'm not walking on eggshells around anyone. Her relationship with her children had also healed, though it took time. Griffin and the triplets eventually understood why their mother had spoken out. They were proud of her courage, even though it meant accepting difficult truths about their father. Mom saved a lot of people by telling her story, Griffin said in a rare interview. I'm proud to be her son. Vivian had become an advocate for transgender rights and spoke frequently about the importance of authentic family relationships. My mom showed me what unconditional love looks like, Vivian said. She accepted me exactly as I am. That's what real parents do. The children rarely visited their father in prison. The relationship had been too damaged by years of control and rejection. Sarah had written a book about the entire experience, titled The Fall of a False Prophet: How One Woman's Truth Changed Everything. This story isn't really about Elon Musk, Sarah wrote in the introduction. It's about the power of ordinary people to create extraordinary change when they refuse to stay silent about injustice. The book became required reading in journalism schools and business programs around the world. 5 years after the trial, Sarah visited Justine at the Truth and Healing Foundation headquarters in Los Angeles. The walls were covered with thank you letters from women whose lives had been changed by the foundation's work. Look at this one, Justine said, handing Sarah a handwritten note. It was from a young engineer who had left an abusive tech company and started her own firm developing clean energy solutions. I kept thinking about your story whenever I wanted to give up, the letter read. You showed me that telling the truth is always worth it, even when it's scary. How many letters like this do you get? Sarah asked. Hundreds every month. Each one reminds me why speaking out was the right choice. They walked through the foundation offices, where counselors and lawyers were helping women plan safe exits from dangerous relationships. This is the real legacy, Justine said. Not just holding one powerful man accountable, but creating a world where abuse has consequences. What's next for you? We're expanding internationally. Abuse of power is a global problem, and we want to help women everywhere. As Sarah prepared to leave, she reflected on how much had changed since that first phone call 5 years ago. Elon Musk's empire had crumbled, but the important work was continuing under better leadership. Thousands of women had found the courage to leave abusive situations. Business practices were changing to prevent future abuse. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't called me that day? Sarah asked. Justine smiled. I try not to think about that. The important thing is that I did call, that I found my voice after all those years of silence. Any advice for other people who know terrible secrets about powerful people? That telling the truth is never as scary as living with lies, and that you're never as alone as you think you are. As Sarah drove away from the foundation, she thought about all the lives that had been changed by one woman's decision to speak up. Justine had shown the world that no one is too powerful to be held accountable. That courage is contagious. That the truth, no matter how difficult, is always worth telling. The legacy wasn't just about bringing down a false hero. It was about building a better world where everyone could thrive. Not just the loudest voice in the room. And that work would continue long after everyone had forgotten the name Elon Musk. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us which city or country you're in. It's amazing to connect with people from all over the world who care about stories like this. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It really helps us know that these important stories matter to you and encourages us to keep sharing them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating true stories about courage, justice, and people who stood up for what's right. We share new stories every week that will inspire and educate you. And here's something really important. Please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Justine's help spread awareness about abuse and show others that they're not alone. Your share could help someone who needs to hear this message of hope and courage. Together we can spread kindness and awareness, one story at a time. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.